Philippines podcast.
There are places in this world where time seems to stand still, where the smell of old wood and chalk dust lingers long after the last bell has rung, where laughter and fear echo off the same walls, depending on who is left behind after sunset. Have you ever wondered why schools, those places of learning and innocence, are so often the setting for tales of terror? Maybe it's the history buried beneath the tiles, maybe it's something else entirely. Imagine this. You're the last one in your school building. The corridors are empty, the sun is setting, and every sound is magnified by the silence. You hear a knock, but no one is there. You see a flash of yellow, but when you follow, there's only the cold, empty classroom. Is it the mind playing tricks, or is it something that has lingered long before you ever arrived? I am Paul, and you are listening to Stories Philippines podcast. My name is Paul, and today's story comes from the heart of a small town in the Philippines, where a single school building stands as both a place of learning and a silent witness to the secrets of its past. The story was sent in by Jay Hay, who was just a sixth grader when she encountered something she would never forget. Before we dive into her experience, let's set the scene. The school is small, only 2 floors with 1 section per grade. If you climb those creaky stairs to the second floor, you would find the grade 6 classroom at the very end of the hallway. Next door, the grade 5 room. It's the kind of school where everyone knows everyone, and secrets travel faster than the wind. On this particular day, the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon. The orange light filtered through the glass windows, casting long, strange shadows across the worn-out desks. Jane, along with a group of girls from grade 5, stayed late to decorate for their teacher's birthday. The air was thick with excitement, tinged with exhaustion. The teacher, exhausted herself, had fallen asleep in the grade 6 room. The canteen workers, always the first to leave, clocked out by 5. By then it was just the girls left, their laughter bouncing off the empty halls. Jane had stepped out to buy a few last-minute decorations. When she returned, she found the atmosphere had changed. The girls were huddled together, eyes wide and faces streaked with tears. The school caretaker, a quiet man everyone called Kuya Rene, stood protectively beside them. "What happened?" Janie asked, heart pounding. One of the younger girls, her voice trembling, replied, "Someone knocked. Someone wearing yellow. We thought it was a student, but then they ran towards the grade 6 room. We followed, but no one was there. The teacher was gone. The caretaker had locked the door. There was no way anyone could have gone inside." The caretaker's face was pale. He admitted that he, too, sometimes felt a presence in the corridors. Something cold. Something watching. That night, Jane went home with more questions than answers. The next day, curiosity got the better of them. They asked to see the hallway CCTV footage, but there was nothing. No figure in yellow. Only the girls, their shadows elongated by the late afternoon sun. Only the caretaker believed them. To understand why a simple knock in the hallway could inspire such terror, we need to dig below the surface. Many Filipino schools are old, some built during the American colonial period, others even earlier. These buildings have seen generations come and go. They have survived typhoons, wars, and earthquakes. Each event leaves an imprint, a layer of memory that never truly fades. The town where Jane's school is located was once the site of a fierce battle during World War II. The Japanese occupied the town, turning the school building into a temporary garrison. It is said that under the very floorboards where children now recite multiplication tables, soldiers once huddled in fear of bombings and snipers. Across the world, the phenomenon of haunted schools is surprisingly common. In Japan, there are stories of the Toye no Hana Kono, a ghostly girl who haunts the third stall of the girls' bathroom. In the United States, tales abound of old schoolhouses haunted by victims of tragic fires or epidemics long past. The universal elements are always there: youth, loss, the lingering presence of those who never got to grow up. In the Philippines, these stories often take on a distinctly local flavor. There is the white lady who glides silently through corridors, the tikbalang, half man, half horse, said to lead children astray. And sometimes there is the yellow figure, an omen of something unresolved, something unfinished. Filipino folklore is rich with tales of spirits and entities that prefer the company of children. In some provinces, the duende or dwarf spirits are thought to live in anthills near schools. They are playful but easily offended. It is said that if you disturb their home, you might fall ill or become lost in your own backyard. In other places, the kapre, a giant who smokes cigars atop ancient trees, watches silently as children play. The little scoute says the child would play with his son as if it were the tree. Color, too, plays a role in Filipino beliefs. Yellow is associated with both joy and warning. In certain rituals, yellow cloth is tied to trees to ward off malevolent spirits. But in other stories, a flash of yellow means a soul is trapped between worlds, seeking help to move on. Modern paranormal investigators in the Philippines use both traditional and scientific methods. They bring gadgets that measure electromagnetic fields, voice recorders, and digital cameras. But sometimes they also bring offerings, rice cakes, coins, or candles, to appease whatever might be lurking. The results are mixed. Sometimes they capture unexplainable shadows or whispers. More often, they walk away with more questions than answers. Submit your stories at storiesphilippines.com. Find show notes and support options in the description. Access exclusive content on Patreon. Follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. Jane's experience was not an isolated one. After that night, whispers spread quickly through the school. Some students claimed to have heard footsteps on the stairs after dark. Others said they saw fleeting shadows behind the windows when the halls were supposed to be empty. The teachers, hardened by years of handling unruly children, tried to reassure their students, but even the bravest among them refused to stay late alone. The caretaker, Kuya Rene, became a quiet guardian of the school's secrets. When asked, he would only say, "There are things here that do not wish to be seen." He made sure the classrooms were locked before sundown. He sprinkled salt at the doorways, an old practice meant to drive away restless spirits. He left offerings in the garden, small plates of food, coins, and yellow flowers. But the questions remained. Who was the figure in yellow? Why did it appear only to the group of girls and the caretaker? And why did it vanish without a trace, leaving behind only fear and confusion? Curiosity led Jane to research similar occurrences. She learned that what they experienced fit the pattern of what psychologists call collective hallucination. This is when a group of people, under stress or in a heightened emotional state, experiences the same strange phenomenon, even when there is no physical evidence. But could it really be just their imaginations? The CCTV had shown nothing. The caretaker was an adult, someone not easily swayed by childish fears, and yet he too had seen things he could not explain. Science offers other explanations. The brain is an amazing machine, capable of filling in the blanks when faced with uncertainty. In low light, shadows can play tricks. The sound of the wind can mimic footsteps. The creaks of an old building can seem like whispers. Add to this the adrenaline of being in a dark, empty school, and it's easy to see how fear can become a living thing. However, there are mysteries that science cannot easily dismiss. In the Philippines, stories of hauntings in schools are so common that they are almost expected. Teachers swap tales during lunch breaks. Students dare each other to visit the bathrooms at night. And every so often, someone sees something that defies explanation. What Janie and her friends experience mirrors stories from around the world. In South Korea, there are tales of haunted school basements and music rooms where a piano plays itself at midnight. In England, some schools are built on ancient burial grounds, and students talk of ghostly apparitions in Victorian dress. In India, legends speak of the Chudai, a vengeful spirit who lingers in empty classrooms. Why do schools attract such stories? Perhaps it is because they are places of transition. Children become teenagers, learning and growing in ways that are sometimes painful. The energy of so many young lives, filled with hope and fear, leaves its mark. Or perhaps, as some believe, there are spirits drawn to the innocence of youth, seeking comfort or resolution. Filipino culture is built on a foundation of respect for the unseen. Children are taught to say tabi tabi po when passing by old trees or anthills, a way of asking permission from spirits that might be present. When strange things happen, families consult healers or priests instead of simply dismissing the experience. After the incident, Jane's mother brought her to a local healer. The woman, old and wise with kind eyes, listened quietly to the story. She mixed herbs in a bowl, chanting softly. She explained that sometimes spirits are drawn to celebrations. Birthdays, in particular, are times when the veil between worlds is thin. The healer gave Jane a yellow ribbon to wear around her wrist, a symbol of protection and hope. She told her not to be afraid, but to always show respect to the unseen. "You are not alone," she said. "There are guardians here too." From a religious perspective, the experience was both troubling and intriguing. The Catholic faith, which shapes much of Filipino life, teaches that the soul lives on after death. Churches hold special prayers for those who have not found peace. Each November, families visit cemeteries, lighting candles and offering food to the departed. But the church also warns against seeking out spirits. It teaches that not all entities are friendly. Some are lost, others are malevolent. Priests recommend prayer, holy water, and the company of others when facing unexplained events. Jane's school, like many in the Philippines, had its own chapel. After the incident, the teachers organized a mass. Students lit candles and prayed for safety and peace. The principal placed a statue of Saint Michael, the archangel who fights evil, near the entrance. For a while, the sense of fear lessened. But the memory of that night and the figure in yellow never quite disappeared. Submit your stories at storiesphilippines.com. Find show notes and support options in the description. Access exclusive content on Patreon. Follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. Let's return to the scene of the story. Jane's school stands at the edge of a small town, surrounded by rice fields and mango trees. Beyond the gates, a narrow road winds toward the mountains, where fog rolls in every afternoon. The school itself is built on slightly raised ground, the second floor offering a view of the nearby river that glimmers in the sunlight. Some say this spot was once a resting place for travelers, long before the classrooms were built. The geography of the place adds to its mystery. The river, locals say, is home to Encanto, nature spirits that can either bless or curse those who cross their territory. At dusk, the cries of cicadas mix with the distant laughter of children playing. But when darkness falls, everything changes. Even the bravest souls hurry home before the road disappears into shadow. It's easy to see how such a setting could inspire stories of the supernatural. The land itself seems to remember, holding on to memories that are older than the town or the school. The trees, twisted by decades of wind and rain, stand like silent witnesses to events both ordinary and extraordinary. In the weeks following the incident, the school community tried to move on. Decorations for the birthday party were put away and lessons resumed as usual. But the girls who were there that night, including Jane, found it hard to forget. Some had trouble sleeping. Others avoided the second floor hallway whenever possible. Teachers noticed the change. They tried to distract the students with projects and games, but the atmosphere had shifted. Even the boys who usually joked about ghosts became quiet when passing the grade 6 room. The caretaker, once cheerful, became more withdrawn. One evening, a group of parents gathered in the principal's office. They shared their own stories. Unexplained noises, cold spots, strange dreams. It became clear that the figure in yellow was just the latest in a long line of strange happenings. The principal, Miss Teresa Ann Illigan, decided it was time to address the fears directly. She invited a local historian to speak to the students and teachers about the town's past. The historian, Mr. Rafael Oliveros, arrived with a stack of old photographs and faded maps. He told the story of the town's founding, the arrival of American teachers, the days when the school was just a single wooden building. He talked about the war, when the school served as a shelter for families and soldiers alike. But he also shared stories that were not in the history books, stories of strange lights seen in the fields at night, of voices calling from the river, of a child who once disappeared near the old mango tree and was never found. He explained that the figure in yellow might be tied to an old legend. A child who died during the war, separated from her family during an air raid. She was said to have loved her yellow dress, a rare luxury in those difficult times. Over the years, sightings of a child in yellow became part of local folklore. Some said she appeared only during times of celebration, drawn by the sound of laughter and music. Others believed she was searching for her family, lost in the chaos of war. The historian's visit gave the students a new way to think about what had happened. Fear gave way to curiosity. Jane and her friends began to ask questions, not just about ghosts, but about the lives of those who had come before them. They visited the town library, searching for clues in old newspapers and diaries. They interviewed elders who remembered the war. The story of the girl in yellow became a link between the past and present, reminding everyone that the school was more than just a building. It was a living part of the community's memory. Jane herself began to see the experience differently. At first, she had been terrified. Now she wondered if maybe the figure in yellow was not something to fear, but someone in need of understanding. Someone who, like her, was just trying to find her place in the world. News of the incident reached a group of paranormal investigators from a nearby city. They asked permission to spend the night in the school, bringing with them cameras, audio recorders, and EMF meters. The students watched with a mix of excitement and dread as the team set up their equipment. That night, the investigators paced the corridors, asking questions into the darkness. Is anyone here? Do you need help? Hours passed with only the sounds of settling wood and distant dogs barking. Just after midnight, one of the cameras picked up a strange blur of yellow light near the grade 6 room. The footage was inconclusive. Some said it was just a trick of the light, a reflection from a passing vehicle. Others were not so sure. The investigators left a note in the classroom, written in both English and Filipino. You are not forgotten. May you find peace. Submit your stories at storiesphilippines.com. Find show notes and support options in the description. Access exclusive content on Patreon. Follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. After the investigation, the air around the school changed. Some felt lighter, while others grew more uneasy. Kuya Rainey, the caretaker, finally broke his silence. One afternoon, he called Jane and her friends into the garden, just beneath the oldest mango tree. His voice was soft, almost trembling. You girls are brave. What you saw was not meant to harm you. I have seen her too, many times over the years. Always in yellow, always silent. When I was young, I thought it was my imagination. But then I learned her story from my own grandmother. He told them about the time he was a boy playing hide and seek after school. He hid in the same hallway where the incident happened. He heard gentle humming and saw a girl in yellow sitting alone by the window. She looked sad, but when he blinked, she was gone. Kuya Rene believed she was a guardian, watching over the school and its children. He said that sometimes the past needed to be remembered so it could rest. He encouraged the girls to show respect, to leave small tokens, flowers, candies, even a simple greeting. She is part of our history now. Maybe she just wants to be included. After Kuya Rene shared his story, the girls decided to hold a small ceremony. Led by their teacher, Miss Abigail Lauren Mendoza, they gathered near the grade 6 classroom at sunset. Each girl brought something yellow, a ribbon, a flower, a piece of candy. They said a prayer for the lost and the forgotten, asking for peace and protection. Jane tied her yellow ribbon to the doorknob, whispering, "You are not alone." The air felt different, warmer, somehow quieter. Some of the girls swore they heard faint laughter, like a thank you carried on the wind. Rituals like these are common in Filipino culture. They're ways of bridging the gap between the living and the dead, of turning fear into compassion. In other countries, similar practices exist. In Mexico, families celebrate Dia de los Muertos, honoring the spirits of their ancestors with altars and offerings. In China, the Hungry Ghost Festival is a time to feed wandering souls, ensuring they do not become restless. Across the globe, people use rituals to make peace with the unknown. Even after the ceremony, not all questions were answered. Why did the girl in yellow choose that particular night to appear? Was she drawn by the celebration or by the loneliness of the empty school? Did she want to be remembered, or was she searching for something lost long ago? Jane often thought about these questions as she walked the halls. Sometimes she would pause by the window where the caretaker once saw the girl. She would imagine what it was like during the war, how terrifying it must have been, how desperate for comfort a child must have felt. The more she wondered, the more she realized that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. The unknown can be frightening, but it can also be a source of wonder. It reminds us that the world is older and deeper than we think. For the rest of her time in grade 6, JJ became known for her curiosity and kindness. She helped organize more birthday parties, always making sure to leave a yellow ribbon in the hallway. Her friends followed her lead, and soon the school was filled with small signs of remembrance. Yellow post-its, paper flowers, and even a mural painted with the words, "We remember." The teachers noticed a change in the students. They seemed more empathetic, more willing to listen to each other's fears. The story of the girl in yellow became a lesson, not just in history or folklore, but in compassion and respect. Other schools in nearby towns heard about what happened and reached out to JJ's school for advice. They shared their own stories, and soon a community formed, united not by fear, but by understanding. The story of the girl in yellow spread beyond the school. Local reporters wrote articles, and people from neighboring barangays came to visit. Some brought their own offerings, hoping to honor the spirit and find closure for their own unexplained experiences. A group of university students studying psychology decided to use the story as a case study. They interviewed students, teachers, and townsfolk, trying to separate fact from folklore. Their findings were surprising. Rather than causing distress, the encounter had brought the community closer together. People felt safer, knowing they were not alone in their fears. Jeanne was invited to speak at a town hall meeting. She stood in front of a room filled with adults and children, her voice steady. "We may never know exactly what happened, but we can choose how we respond. We can be afraid, or we can be kind. We can ignore the past, or we can learn from it." Objulus Submit your stories at storiesphilippines.com. Find show notes and support options in the description. Access exclusive content on Patreon. Follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. As the story gained attention, experts in psychology and neuroscience weighed in. They explained that places like schools are powerful triggers for memory. The brain remembers where we learned, laughed, cried, or felt afraid. When something strange happens, especially in a familiar place, it can create a lasting impression, sometimes even stronger than the event itself. Scientists also discussed the phenomenon known as place memory. This is the idea that locations can feel charged with emotion because of what has happened there. A classroom isn't just four walls and a blackboard. It's a container for the hopes, dreams, and sometimes sorrows of everyone who has passed through. Fear, they said, is an ancient survival tool. It keeps us safe from danger. But it can also make us see patterns where none exist. Shadows become figures, knocks become footsteps, and a flash of yellow can become a ghost. But scientists also acknowledge that fear can bring people together, making communities more resilient. Jianye and her friends listened to these explanations with interest, but deep inside, they knew their experience was more than just a trick of the mind. There was a feeling, a presence, that could not be explained by science alone. The town's parish priest, Father Emmanuel Joseph Ramos, offered another perspective. During a Sunday homily, he spoke of faith, not just in the divine, but in each other. He reminded his flock that the world is filled with things we cannot see or fully understand. He read stories from the Bible of angels appearing to shepherds, of voices heard in dreams, of signs that pointed the way. He said that sometimes the spirits of the past visit us, not to frighten, but to remind us of our duty, to remember, to forgive, and to care for one another. So, Father Ramos blessed the school, sprinkling holy water in every classroom. He invited the students to pray not just for themselves, but for all souls, especially those who wander seeking peace. The ceremony brought comfort, but also a sense of responsibility. The children understood that they were now caretakers of the school's memories, both good and bad. The story of the girl in yellow became part of the school's oral tradition. Each year, new students heard the tale from their older classmates. Some added details, others changed parts, but the heart of the story remained the same. A reminder that the past lives on in the present. Storytelling is a powerful tool not just for entertainment, but for education and healing. In Filipino culture, stories are passed down from grandparents to grandchildren, from teachers to students, from friends to friends. They are a way of making sense of the world, of sharing wisdom, and of finding comfort in difficult times. Jehe became a storyteller herself. She wrote about her experience for the school paper, then later for a regional magazine. She encouraged others to share their own stories, no matter how strange or scary they seemed. Every story matters, she said, because every story is part of who we are. As the months passed, other stories surfaced from the town and beyond. A group of construction workers rebuilding an old bridge claimed to see a child in yellow playing near the riverbank at dusk. A teacher from a nearby barangay reported hearing gentle humming in her empty classroom late at night. These encounters were not always frightening. Sometimes they brought a sense of peace. People began to wonder if the girl in yellow was not just a spirit of the past, but a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times there is light, that every ending is also a beginning, the town organized an annual Remembrance Day, where people wore yellow ribbons and shared stories of the past. They honored not just the girl in yellow, but all those who had come before, teachers, students, parents, and caretakers who had shaped the community. Despite all that was learned, the mystery of the girl in yellow was never fully solved. Some said she was a lost child from the war. Others believed she was an angel sent to watch over the school. A few insisted she was a creation of collective imagination, a way for the community to deal with its fears and hopes. But for Jane, it no longer mattered. What mattered was the change she saw in her friends, in her teachers, in herself. The story brought people together, sparked conversations, and inspired acts of kindness. It turned a moment of fear into a legacy of compassion. Submit your stories at storiesphilippines.com. Find show notes and support options in the description. Access exclusive content on Patreon. Follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. The story of the girl in yellow left a permanent mark on the school. Even years later, Janie would return for visits and find yellow ribbons tied to the banisters or tucked into the corners of classroom windows. The tradition became a silent promise passed from one generation to the next, to look out for one another, to listen when someone is afraid, and to remember that the invisible is sometimes just as real as what we can see. The teachers noticed that students were more willing to support their classmates, especially those who felt left out or lonely. The lesson of the yellow visitor wasn't about ghosts or the supernatural. It was about empathy. Even the most skeptical teachers admitted that the school felt warmer, safer, and more united. Jane realized that compassion is what turns haunting stories into healing ones. The girl in yellow, whether spirit or memory, had become a symbol of kindness. Every act of inclusion, every yellow ribbon, was a way of saying, "You are not forgotten, you belong." The story also inspired a new tradition, the annual Remembrance Walk. Every November, near the anniversary of the incident, students and teachers would gather at dusk and walk the length of the school, holding candles and wearing yellow sashes. They would stop at the grade 6 classroom, where the principal would read aloud the names of all students and staff who had passed through the school since its founding. This act of remembrance connected everyone to the history beneath their feet. The Remembrance Walk taught the students that they were part of something bigger, a living story that stretched back decades, even centuries. Parents and alumni joined in, sharing memories of their own school days, and sometimes their own brushes with the unexplained. The ceremony ended each year with a moment of silence, as the sun set behind the mountains and the schoolyard filled with the soft glow of candlelight. In that hush, some claimed to feel a gentle presence in the air, a reminder that those who came before were never truly gone. The Remembrance Walk soon caught the attention of other schools and communities, both in the Philippines and abroad. Teachers from Japan, Korea, and even the United States wrote letters describing similar traditions in their own cultures. Nights when students honor the spirits of the departed, and teachers tell cautionary tales in the classroom. Some schools even adopted the yellow ribbon as a symbol of remembrance and hope. A professor from a university in Singapore visited the town to study the phenomenon. She explained that across Asia, the color yellow is often linked to the spirit world, sometimes as a warning, sometimes as a blessing. She pointed out that in Thailand, yellow flowers are offered to lost souls during festivals, while in China, yellow paper is burned to guide spirits home. The professor's visit showed the students that their story was not just local, but part of a much larger tapestry of belief and tradition. It was a bridge between cultures and generations, proof that the search for meaning is universal. As interest in the story grew, more paranormal investigators visited the school. Some brought the latest technology, infrared cameras, digital voice recorders, and sensitive EMF meters. Others brought nothing but patience and open minds. Each investigation produced its own mysteries. Sometimes the cameras picked up orbs of light moving through empty classrooms. Other times, audio recorders captured soft humming or the faint sound of footsteps. The evidence was never conclusive, but it was enough to keep the questions alive. The investigators often left messages of thanks, promising to share their findings with the students. They reminded everyone that even when science cannot provide all the answers, the act of searching brings people together. In the end, the real discovery was not proof of ghosts, but proof of community. Jane came to understand that belief is a personal journey. Some of her classmates found comfort in prayer, others in science, others still in the traditions of their ancestors. The teachers encouraged respectful discussion, reminding students that faith and doubt are not enemies, but partners in the search for truth. Father Ramos visited the school often, leading prayers and listening to students' stories. He reminded them that faith is not about having all the answers, but about finding hope in the face of uncertainty. He encouraged them to care for one another, to forgive mistakes, and to be open to the mysteries of the world. The school became a place where questions were welcomed, where curiosity was celebrated, and where no one had to face their fears alone. Submit your stories at storiesphilippines.com. Find show notes and support options in the description. Access exclusive content on Patreon. Follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. Years passed, and the story of the girl in yellow became a rite of passage for every student who entered the school. New sixth graders heard the tale during orientation week, often from the older students who had once been afraid themselves. Some of these new students were skeptical, others fascinated. One year, a student named Patrick Elijah Santos decided to write a play about the incident for the school's foundation day. He gathered stories from classmates, teachers, and even Kuya Rene, weaving together history, folklore, and personal experience. The play brought the entire town together. Parents, siblings, and alumni filled the schoolyard to watch the performance. As the sun set and fireflies flickered in the warm air, at the end of the play, the actors stood in a circle, each holding a yellow ribbon. For a moment, the audience was silent. Then everyone tied their ribbons to the school fence. It was a powerful reminder that every person, whether living or remembered, is part of the school story. The legend of the girl in yellow continued to evolve. Children added their own details. Some said she liked to play with chalk drawings left on the board. Others believed she visited the library on rainy days to read forgotten books. These embellishments were not meant to deceive, but to keep the story alive, adapting it to fit each new generation's hopes and fears. Local artists painted murals of the girl in yellow, always with a gentle smile and wide, curious eyes. Students wrote poems and songs, celebrating her presence as a symbol of kindness and resilience. The story became more than a warning. It became an invitation to look for the light in every shadow. Teachers used the legend to talk about history, empathy, and the importance of community. They explained that legends are living things shaped by the people who tell them. Each retelling was a way of honoring the past while preparing for the future. The school's connection to its history grew stronger with every year. Jane, now a young adult, returned to speak at a school assembly. She shared her memories of that night, describing the fear, the confusion, and eventually the understanding that came from facing the unknown together. She reminded the students that their actions matter, that kindness can echo through time. The girl in yellow taught us to care for each other, she said. Her story reminds us that we are never truly alone, even in our darkest moments. The assembly ended with a group photo, the students and teachers all wearing yellow ribbons on their wrists. The photograph was framed and placed in the school's entrance hall, a new layer added to the building's living memory. News outlets and websites began to pick up the story. The girl in yellow became a symbol across the region for remembering the forgotten and for supporting those who feel unseen. Community groups started Yellow Days, where people wore yellow to raise awareness for causes like mental health, loneliness, and the value of listening. Artists, writers, and musicians from different backgrounds contributed their own versions of the legend. Some wrote short stories, others composed songs or created digital illustrations. The girl in yellow became a muse for creative expression, a bridge between the supernatural, the historical, and the deeply personal. The story's reach grew far beyond the school's walls, reminding everyone that legends, like memories, are meant to be shared. Letters and emails poured in to the school from listeners of Stories Philippines podcast and beyond. People shared their own experiences, strange sights after sunset, unexplained comfort during difficult times, or dreams of loved ones who had passed on. Some wrote of their gratitude, saying the story helped them face their own fears and losses. Others asked questions, hoping for answers. What really happened that night? Who is the girl in yellow? Was she a ghost, an angel, or simply a story that grew out of the need for hope? The principal, Miss Elegin, responded to each message with care. She explained that while some mysteries may never be solved, every story shared brings people closer together. Our school's greatest lesson is not in textbooks or exams, she wrote, but in the way we care for one another and in the stories we choose to remember. Submit your stories at storiesphilippines.com. Find show notes and support options in the description. Access exclusive content on Patreon. Follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. As years rolled by, the school stood unchanged on the outside. 2 floors, the same old mango tree, the same river singing beyond the field. Yet within its walls, the echoes of the girl in yellow lingered, woven into the fabric of every classroom and corridor. Generations of students knew her story. Some claimed to glimpse her shadow on rainy afternoons. Others left yellow ribbons or small gifts in quiet corners, just in case she passed by. Jane, now an adult, sometimes returned to the schoolyard. She would stand beneath the mango tree, listening to the laughter of children, and wonder what truly happened that night when she was in grade 6. Had the past reached out to touch the present, or had they, through fear, hope, and memory, given shape to something that needed to be remembered? The truth, as always, remained just out of reach. The CCTV footage showed nothing. The investigators found only questions. Yet the feelings, the change in the school, the unity that followed, these were real. The story of the classroom and the girl in yellow became less about what was seen and more about what was felt, shared, and learned. As we close this story, let's linger on the questions that remain. Why do we see what cannot be seen? Why do certain places hold memories so tightly? What do we owe to the past and to those who can no longer speak for themselves? Consider these words from a Filipino proverb: Ang hindi lumigong sa pinanggalingon, hindi makarating sa parorunang. He who does not look back to where he came from will never get to his destination. Perhaps the girl in yellow was a reminder to look back, to honor those left behind, and to move forward with compassion. Or, as a poet once wrote, between the worlds of what is and what might be, we find ourselves haunted, hopeful, human. So, what do you believe? Was it a ghost, a collective memory, or something born from the depths of fear and kindness? Has your own school held secrets or stories you long to share? We'd love to hear from you. Submit your stories at storiesphilippines.com, where your voice becomes part of our tapestry of wonder and mystery. You can also find show notes and support options in the description below. For those wishing to access exclusive content and behind-the-scenes stories, join our Patreon community. Every little bit helps us bring more tales to your ears. Don't forget to follow us on social media for daily folklore facts and updates from across the archipelago. Share this episode with friends, family, or anyone who loves a good story. Support the podcast financially in ways you can find in the show notes. Before we go, remember, every school, every classroom, every hallway holds memories. Some joyful, some sad, some mysterious. The next time you pass an empty classroom or hear a strange sound after dark, ask yourself, what stories lie hidden in these walls? What echoes from the past are waiting to be heard? Thank you for joining me on this journey through history, folklore, and the unseen. I am Paul, and this is Stories Filipinos podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, like, subscribe, follow, and share this podcast. Explore our past episodes for more tales of wonder and terror. and stay tuned for future stories that bridge the worlds of the real and the unknown. Till next time, keep your ribbons yellow, your hearts open, and your ears tuned to the whispers of the past. Good night.